And we're all right. G'day, everyone. Welcome back to the Snake Catchers podcast. I'm Brett, and I'm here, of course, with Dan, as always. And today we're back with another guest episode. We are very lucky today to be joined by other podcaster, private keeper, herper, zookeeper, Joe Mac. I hope I haven't left anything out there, but yeah, thanks for coming on and joining us today.
It's a pleasure, fellas. I'm happy to be here. I must say I'm a big fan of the show, so it's very exciting for me to come on as a guest too.
Oh, thank you for that. We're slowly sort of getting it out there with more people and slowly getting the views in. But yeah, we might as well get straight into it. If you just want to give us a bit of a rundown on who you are and sort of what you do for those who might not know.
Yeah, okay. My name's Joe Mack. My real name is longer than that, but Joe Mack's much easier. Um, I don't know. I guess what do I do? I work as a professional reptile keeper. I manage the reptile department up here at the Cairns Aquarium, which is pretty awesome. I've got a bit of a private collection going on as well. Predominantly, it's green tree pythons at the moment, but there's quite a number of elapids in there as well. I guess the private keeping has gone through a bit of an evolution too. I think like a lot of people, you sort of keep a bunch of things and then figure out sort of what you like. I know about 4 or 5 years ago, I was going mad with elapids. At one stage, I had five species of brown snakes. I was full blown stamp collecting, and I had 5 species of brown snakes, and I went, what the fuck am I doing? I've got 5 species of brown snakes here in this room. Um, but yeah, certainly move more towards, I don't know, maybe a bit more of an ethical way of keeping, just keeping things that I really enjoy in enclosures that I really enjoy seeing them in as well, rather than just, historically I've been one, definitely keep things in tubs and racks and paper towel and that sort of thing, but enjoying much more keeping animals sort of in my living room, in enclosures that are nice to look at as well. Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, I've got a podcast as well, which has been a bit of fun. Started that nearly 12 months ago now. Somewhat of made it maybe mostly a selfish pursuit. Realized that, so I was having all these conversations with reptile people and just thought that there's so much really cool information out there and really cool people to talk to. So I thought, stuff it, let's try to pin these people down in more of a I guess legitimate sense and have proper conversations where I'm recording them and actually trying to get information out of people.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of similar to what we were thinking with our sort of podcast style. We obviously both our podcasts are reptile related, but they're sort of different sort of setups. Like we sort of base it around talking about snake catching for the most part, sort of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of things that people wouldn't know, and that was pretty much conversations that me and Brett would normally have anyway. That's literally why we started it. So like a similar to you a little bit, just sort of starting it. May as well record a bit of it and see if anyone wants to listen to this.
Yeah, see if there's any suckers out there. I definitely did some snake catching myself as well. I guess I got pretty seriously sort of into the herps around 2016, 2017. I actually went over to the States and lived in South Florida for about 6 months in 2016, doing a semester abroad over there. And I was looking for somewhere to get some reptile experience. Ended up working at this reptile farm, essentially run by a guy named Tom Crutchfield, who back then I'd never heard of, which maybe aided me a little bit because obviously he's a bit of a polarizing character, and I went to his house and he was probably one of the most hospitable people I've ever met, and allowed me into his home, and he had hundreds of iguanas and cobras and rattlesnakes and just shit everywhere. It was amazing. Emus, alligators came in like just ridiculous. Um, so yeah, sort of hit the ground running there with snakes. And I remember it was like my second time visiting, and he's like, "Oh, you want to hold this monocle cobra?" And I was like, "Yeah." don't really know at all what I'm doing, but yeah, sure. And then sure enough, there's this picture of me holding this leucistic monocled cobra. So it's like white as white can be, and so am I holding this thing. I am just like absolutely packing it. It was terrifying, and he's like waving a roll of paper towel in front of its face, trying to get it to hood right up, and I'm just in the background like holding it. I was like, please God, don't spin around on me. And it didn't spin around, and it was all good, but. Um, yeah, so that was awesome. I got to work with a lot of venomous snakes there, lots of different rattlesnakes and cobras and vipers and all that sort of stuff. But it was when I came back to Townsville, which is where I've spent most of my life, where I got into the snake catching. Because it's almost like it's kind of a very, at least in Townsville, I know you guys have some really rigorous training and standards that you have to be a snake catcher down there. But in Townsville, I just, Queensland as a whole, at least back then, I just did a venomous snake handling course and a first aid course, sent off for my DMP, damage mitigation permit, to relocate snakes, and bang, I got it instantly. And then off you are on your own, happy and ready to relocate snakes for anyone who's willing to call you and let you do it.
That's ridiculous indeed, because like you saying that we've got, quite strict standards down here, but we still don't think it's enough.
Strict enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree. I would agree entirely, because there was little old Joe Mack, like 21 years old, running around Townsville trying to catch just whatever anyone had in their yards. And, you know, thankfully, I mean, I was catching there for like 3 years, I guess. And I probably caught, I don't know, 200 snakes in total. I'd say 180 of them were carpet pythons and tree snakes. And then the other 20 were like keelbacks and a few other bits and pieces. I think I got 6 eastern browns and 1 coastal taipan in three
and,
in three
and
years of
there's
doing
a
it.
bit of story to that coastal taipan, isn't there?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Do you want to have a chat about that?
No, it's a good one. It's pretty funny. I was in the depths of uni. I was working 2 jobs. I was trying to. It was actually exam week, and I was really trying to focus on my uni because I wasn't very studious. I was definitely the kind of character who would just get shit done when I needed to. And so this was a time where I needed to get shit done, and I said, I won't do any snake calls this week because I really need to focus on uni. And this chick I know called me and she's like, "Oh, I've got a big snake in my laundry." And I was like, "Oh, look, I'm pretty busy at the moment." And she said to me, "Oh, it's got like a pink belly." And it was the middle of the day. And I was like, "It's got a pink belly." And like something in my gut was just like, that's a coastal taipan. There's a coastal taipan in her laundry. And she lives sort of Ross River runs all the way through Townsville, and she's like towards the end, like the not the mouth end, she's at the upper reaches of it, sort of. It's a bit more scrubby, a bit more open. So I'm like, that's kind of where you'd expect to find a coastal taipan, certainly not in the suburbs in town or anything like that. So anyway, I hauled ass to her place. All I had was short shorts and a singlet, and I managed to find some closed-in shoes, and I chucked them on, and I go in. She closed all the doors to the laundry, and I went in there, and I'm like shuffling things about, and I couldn't see anything. I pulled the washing machine out, and just managed to like snuck my head around the side of it through this little gap, and I looked down on the ground and there was no snake there. And then when I looked up, it was right on like the pipes to the washing machine looking at me. And I was like, oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. Right. All right. And, I'd say this was pretty early on too. This was maybe 6 or 8 months into catching, I guess. And so, like, the snake was a meter 60 eventually. We figured that out, but not the kind of snake you want to be dancing with when you're inexperienced. And, anyway, I remember I had a swipe at it, just trying to hook it towards the bag, and I missed it. And this snake just took off. Like I wasn't sure where it went, like into the walls or something. And I told this chick, I was like, "Look, that's about as much as I can do. We can try to figure something out to try to catch it somehow." And so I was working at a pet shop at the time, and I went and got a handful of like shredded newspaper from one of the rodent bins, and I put it into a funnel trap, and then I put the funnel trap in the laundry. And I was doing all sorts of goofy shit too, trying to put like a flower down in rows, lines across the floor to see if the snake went through the flower. Like, is it even still here or not? And like, it was just a shit show. And I remember she was working at she was a bartender, and she got home one night at 3 o'clock, and she's like, "I'll just check the trap." And I was still up studying. Like I said, I was not very studious, so I was doing it at stupid hours. And she calls me and she's like, "Joe, the snake's in the trap. This snake's in the trap." And I've gone, Jesus, let's go and get it. And by the time I got there, this coastal taipan had managed to get its whole body into the funnel trap and then its whole body out of the funnel trap.
Jesus.
So smart enough to get out of there. And then it was actually her grandparents' place, and they said, "Look, we are not comfortable living here while this snake's here. We want you to do whatever you have to do to get this snake out of here." And I was like, "Okay, can you put that in writing for me, please?" And so they did, and I ended up going into there and literally ripping everything out, smashing up the walls, doing everything, trying to find this snake because I thought it was in the walls because there was gaps like underneath the sheeting or whatever. And yeah, eventually we found the snake, and funnily enough, it was not in the walls. There was like one little gap of skirting on one of the walls next to where the vanity was. I ripped the vanity out, and that's where the snake was. And when I went to grab it, this thing shot through the gaps into one of like a bit of the framework, like the steel framework. It had these holes in it that were like, I don't know, 40 or 50 mil across. And that's what I thought the snake was like, using those holes to go through different walls of the house or whatever. And we now know that it wasn't doing that because it got stuck in one of those holes. So this snake just
Jesus.
jammed its body full force into it. And I ended up getting another snake catcher to come and help me with it. I had this thing by the tail, and I was, I didn't want to pull too hard because it was in metal, and I didn't want to put my hand anywhere near it to try to work it out because I didn't know where its head was, and I'm no builder, so I wasn't sure how the framework worked. Could this thing just pop its head around the other side of that pole and smash me or whatever? Anyway, I remember I was holding this thing by the tail for like 30 or 40 minutes or something until this other guy rocked up, and yeah, we ended up getting the snake out, but it had quite a few cuts down the snake. The other guy might have been a bit rough at trying to pull it out of the metal framework that it was in, and it sliced it right open. And just chaos. This guy just reached in and grabbed it like right near the framework and just started pulling it. And I just watched the snake the skin just get caught. It was very unpleasant. And then he pulled it out and he was holding it like mid body and he's like, "Where's the bag?" And I was like, "Drop the snake." And he's like, "Nah, where's the bag?" I was like, "Drop the snake. You're holding a 5.5 foot taipan mid body." And then anyway, um, if you've ever tried to get a snake in a bag and someone else is holding the snake or the bag, it's very, very challenging. When you've got both things, you can sort of coordinate it. But
Especially when
two
it's a
people,
coastal taipan, nonetheless.
yeah, it was shit. Anyway, we got it in the bag. It needed some vet care. Obviously, it had to get some stitches and stuff. And unfortunately, I went overseas just after that. So I actually, yes, it was 2017. So I'd had my DMP for probably 6 months or so. Um, and yeah, the snake got stitches, and I think they gave it a few feeds, and they let it go back sort of nearby to where it was. But what was challenging about that is that I was posting things on Facebook back then. I had Joe Mac Snake Catcher or something, I think, and I was posting a bunch, and that post got a bit of traction. And so I'm getting phone calls, and they're trying to tee me up for news interviews and radio. And I know you guys have done a bit of that, and I sort of did my best to. I think I did one interview, and they posted this article, and they just freestyle just bits and pieces. There were things that I had said, but they just put it in like not even close to the context. And I was just like, nah, fuck this. Like, I'm not answering any of these calls, not responding to any of these emails. And then all the comments are never nice. And I remember specifically one bloke. There's a picture of me holding this snake in a tube at the vets. I was fucking so excited because it's a type end, like you just don't see him. And this one dude comments and goes, is he Afghan? And I'm like, no, I'm not. But what's that got to do with the price of rice in China? Like it had nothing to do with anything. And I just thought, nah, this isn't for me.
What's wrong with an Afghan
Yeah,
snake catcher anyway?
that's that's what I want to know. I don't know, but yeah, I just thought, nah, bugger this. This is a bit controversial. So, but apart from that, yeah, a handful of texties that were pretty well behaved. For the most part, there was
Lucky.
one. Yeah, yeah, somewhat. But there was one that was in like a metal yard, and it was in this big like 6-inch metal pipe, and they blocked off both ends, and it was the middle of the day, so the sun's beaming on this metal pipe with a snake in it,
Would have
and
been nice and warm.
yes, it was excited. So I was like, this big metal pole is really heavy. I was like, there's no way I'm going to lift it by myself. So I got these workers there. I said, you fellas lift lift one end and shake it, and I'll stand at the other end with the bag. And that was where I learned that snakes aren't often inclined to go down things. They usually want to go up things, because as these guys held this pipe above their head, this eastern brown just shot straight across the top and landed right behind him, straight out of the pole on the ground.
No, it's just
Yeah. Oh, that's good fun. Bit of fun. It's been a long time since I've done snakes. Some call outs. It's all sort of refined to the house, the venomous snake interactions lately. And I actually find, I think, well, I don't know what you fellas reckon. Is it easier to work with snakes like in a captive setting or in a catching setting?
it's different.
It's very
It's
different.
obviously very different. I just, I'd say because like you sort of know in your snake room, you know what snakes are normally going to like have a hissy fit. And then obviously in the field, you don't know, but like what they're going to throw at you, sort of thing. I mean, but to be honest, like most snakes we catch are pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
I really,
Yeah.
it's most of them, and we catch like literally all brown snakes. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
90% brown snakes, and
Mhm.
well, what we think is good or behaving. Yeah, well, it's our interpretation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like a controlled setting, the anxiety obviously lowers a bit because you're like, especially if you're in a secure snake room, you know nothing's going to get away from you. And if it does, it's in the room. So I guess
Yeah.
that side of things is probably a little bit better. But I guess because you sort of, yeah, like I said, know most of your snakes. So yeah, in the wild, you're just sort of walking into the unknowns. Who knows what?
God knows what. And I think, yeah, with catching too, the variables are so much wider. Like who's watching, yeah, like how hot's that bit of metal that the snake's been sitting in? What other contributing factors are there? But I think one thing I sort of experienced was that I found like with catching, you need to pretty much do one thing. Your goal is one thing. That's to get the snake in a bag. But I found sometimes, like in captivity, if you're trying to put a brown snake in a container for a soak or something like that, you know, that's a bit tricky. Or if you're trying to get a brown snake into just an open door in an enclosure, that can
Yeah.
also be a bit trickier. But that's kind of coupled with you, like you said before, Dan. You know the snakes. You kind of understand how they're going to be. um, yeah, the objectives are different, which changes things, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, it's for sure. Yeah. Like you say like you generally do like know your snakes, but I've got a tiger snake he's not that, but he's getting there. He's probably 3.5 foot or something like that. Like stunning looking snake. I think I posted him a few times on socials, but he's so hit and miss. Like he'll just be like one day I could almost just pick him up. And then other days you open his tub and he hisses at you flat in his neck and literally just like almost tries to head but never really tries to bite, but just really just has a massive hissy fit. And there's no in between. Like you never know what you're
Yeah.
gonna get. But normally and his tub's like down the bottom of the rack as you walk in the door. So I know when he's in a shitty mood because you walk in and you just hear this like big hiss and like a headbutt or a tail whip against the tub. You're like, yeah, you're not in the mood.
Yeah, I think I
Well,
think the tigers are pretty good for that. But it's also good as a keeper to recognize that because if the snake's not in the mood, and that's something I think is really I don't want to use the word convenient, but that's kind of what it is. Like with reptiles, is that if you don't clean that shit today, nothing bad, like really isn't the worst thing just to wait until the next day when the snake might just be in a better mood.
yeah,
Like
no,
particularly with venomous snakes. Like, if you come home from work and you're knackered and you're like, oh, my snake room really needs to be cleaned, maybe it's not wise to do that while you're tired with the lapids. Just hold off till you're feeling a bit better and just do things with them the next day
Yeah, I'm
for sure.
yeah,
I'm getting heaps better with that sort of stuff. I used to just want to do it all the time and have everything nice and clean. But now, like, yeah, like you said, I'll get home from or sort the kids out and everything and go into the snake room and I can just feel my eyes just, drag and you're like, I probably shouldn't do it.
Probably
Like the
shouldn't
thing in
do
the back
that.
of your
Yeah.
head, you're just like, I probably shouldn't do this. I'm like, yeah, I was any feeling like, no, I'll just leave it. Then like you
Yeah.
just see like this tipped over water bowl sitting there and you're like, just you want to sort it out, but you're just like, just leave it.
you can wait for
Yeah,
12 hours or something.
do it in the morning. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think that there's so many um sort of considerations when it comes to venomous keeping that maybe don't seem to be so glaringly obvious like to new keepers like that one. Don't do things when you're tired. Another one that I really employ, and particularly in a work setting as well, is like I won't work with. We've only got the olive sea snakes, which are the only venomous snakes at work, but obviously that's if that goes pear shaped, you're in trouble. But like, we won't work with venomous snakes at work on a public holiday. We'll do our best to avoid it on weekends. When the hospitals might be busy doing other things. Um, yeah, I don't know. Have you guys found anything else like that? Like, I guess one thing too, like with pythons, you can just open up the cage and then figure out what you're going to do. But with my lapids, I will stop and just fully assess everything. Like I'll clean the room out, get the shit up off the floor. I'll get all the bins ready, all the cleaning equipment ready, tubs ready, everything ready to go, so that there's just so very little there is no room for error, so you need to set yourself up in such a way. Are
yeah,
there any little tricks you guys have found that you employ with that?
you good.
yeah, absolutely. I typically, like you said, Joe. Obviously, preparing all your equipment, making sure everything's there ready to go. Because again, you don't know how your snakes are gonna behave on a particular day. Um, if you don't have to handle the snake, obviously don't handle it. If you can just hook it out and put it in a bin, that's
Oh, that's the
obviously
best.
the
That's the
best way to
best.
go as well. Um, again, just self-preservation.
And not everyone
I'll
has it.
no, I'm not usually not. I'll only try and handle elapids when my wife is home,
Yeah.
just in
Yeah, for
case
sure.
something happens. Touch wood. Um, but yeah, just a couple of little things like that that just would help out in a situation,
Emergencies.
just in an emergency situation.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same. There are like I've got a couple of lapids that don't for like I'll do it if no one's home or whatever. Like I've got a collets and a collets and a red belly that are both calmer than all my pythons. They're probably the two that I don't worry about. But then the other ones like the browns, the tigers,
Browns in particular.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that I sort of make sure someone's home. Um, and yeah, sort of pick my time with them a bit. And yeah, there are a couple snakes in there that I'll over plan like what's going to go on
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
because
you
like
have to.
yeah, because I would have I've got at least one brown that without fail every time flip out in the cage, and then once you get him in the bin, you have to have the lid literally right there,
Just to
on it, so it's banging like going straight down again. So
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I always have done, particularly with smaller lapids, is usually keep them in like click clacks, and you pull the click clack out, and I always put it into secondary confinement, just another big tub, and then I'll just flip it over into that next click clack that's ready to go, and then put that click clack back on the
Yeah.
shelf. And then when that snake gets big enough to be moved into a bigger enclosure, it's like, oh no, hang on, I don't have that safety anymore of that container, and that's when things start to get interesting. But by that stage, you should sort of have a pretty good.
Yeah. Just little, I guess there's just lots of little things you learn over time, isn't there, too?
And it is just all the little bits and pieces that you pick up just by doing it.
There's only so much you can sort of learn by sort of like learning from. There's a lot you can learn from someone, but there's just a lot of stuff you learn yourself too, in little ways you do things. And you'd probably find that as well. You got your own way of doing stuff.
I find that too, and I found like I've had a few mentors throughout my time, and I think it's important to, at least in my experience, very important to have like several mentors, because you can get bits and pieces from each one and then apply them to your keeping. Because obviously we've all got our own different sets of morals and ethics and life experiences that lead us to having different sorts of views on things. So I think it's very important to just try to pick up bits and pieces from others. But I also think what's probably more important than that is to at least just like, I find myself, I'm always thinking about how I can do things better, or how I can be not necessarily more efficient, but I'm always just kind of aware of like, is this the safest, particularly with venomous snakes? Like, is this the safest way to be doing it? Is there another thing that I could be doing that's going to minimize a risk here? Like, what else could I do here to make this safer and easier? Always thinking about that.
Yeah, for sure.
And in hindsight, I probably should have taken a long sleeve shirt and some pants to that Taipan call out, but whatever.
Long sleeve shirt isn't going to save you against the Taipan anyway.
No, unless it's chainmail or something. But
Yeah.
no, I got nothing.
Go.
I guess since we're talking about keeping, what do you keep at home at the moment?
Like 23 green pythons or something just ridiculous.
Jesus.
I don't know how that happened. I started off with a few and now there's a few more. I've got a handful of magnetic island death adders, which are fantastic. And I've got the pair of Jugites that produce the babies that you guys have. How are they going? They're not too bad?
They're booming now.
Yeah, they're going.
Yeah.
We lost one early on. Which, straight out of the egg, you get that.
To be expected, yeah.
To be expected. But yeah, the other three are smashing it. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Hence why you sort of, as you know, you get a couple of what you're getting. So it's just a bit of insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I was kind enough.
They're pretty feral?
The one I've got is a little bit.
The one you got was the best feeder out of the bunch.
Yeah.
He took pretty well straight away. And yeah, the other two, they weren't too much slower, but yeah, not as good as that one. But yeah, he does spastic.
They just take off, but I literally just put, again, like something else you learn with, especially with babies, I just have like a big container and I put his container in a little one. So then take it off and he takes off, but he's obviously in container.
Can only get so far.
And then you can just flick them back in after, sort of, at the moment.
I think that's sort of what it is for the first, I don't know, maybe 12 months. There's a lot of just trying to flick them back into where they came from.
Yeah. I've actually been lucky. I've been using, I got like the little, the saucer, plastic pot saucer things, the black things you can use for hides. I got some of them, but like this guy's that small. I'm like, I took a tip from Venom Supplies and they used just the paper towel rolls, like the cardboard insert, and they just cut him in half and squeeze one end over and just use that for a lot of their stuff. So I'm like, I'll use that. And so I put that in there and he loves that. And like the last 2 times I've cleaned him, he's been in there and I picked it up with feeding tongs and he stayed in there.
Thing up. Yeah,
I picked the whole thing up and took it out and he stayed in there the whole time. I think once he poked his head out and then I just waved the tong a bit and he's like, bang, and
straight back in.
Never been able to touch him.
Yeah, that's That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Their parents are good snakes. The female, she's busy, but she doesn't seem like she's just not interested in biting. So far, unless you
Yeah.
wiggle your toes in front of her cage when she's hungry. But the father he just is a very typical brown snake. Like
Yeah.
I see him like hood up at his own tail sometimes. He's just like he's yeah, he's so highly strung and just a very nervous thing, but he often has his mouth shut. Not always, but often has his mouth shut
Often.
when he strikes and launches. But um I really hope that some of those babies continue to grow out and hold on to the banding that they have, because both the parents
me
have
too.
banding and they're both really stunning snakes. I'm quite fond of those guys. But yeah, apart from that, I've got a coastal taipan as well. That's 3 years old now. She's probably the favorite in the collection here. She interestingly, I had her. Or she's in like a 6x2 by 18-inch tall enclosure, and I had this log in there that was probably 2/3 of the length of the cage, and she just would sit in that log all the time. And historically, she's also a bit not shy, but she's like pretty cautious. She can be a bit flinchy when you touch her, and but the taipans are great because they're usually pretty inquisitive, and quite a few that I've kept in the past, you just open up their enclosure and wait 5 or 10 minutes, and they'll just bring themselves out, and then you can just pick them up and put them into the holding bin or something like that, because they are just so curious as to what's going on. And
Yeah.
putting this log in this enclosure, it's been in there for sort of a couple of months, and then I think it was last week or the week before, maybe. I just thought, man, literally haven't seen this snake in like 3 weeks. She just is in this log all the time. And I've noticed that the last few times that I've gone to get her out of there, she's been really like unsettled and really unimpressed, like super flinchy. A lot of like taipans will do this where they reverse on themselves, and it's really unsettling. It's really not. Can you guys keep taipans in Adelaide? You can, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any?
No,
Nah,
working on it.
working on it. Well, you probably have seen it at Venom supplies, but they just reverse when you're holding them, and it's unnatural. And I don't really know many other snakes that sort of do it. And she was doing a lot of that. She was really unsettled, and I've kind of thought that because I think that she's been hiding in this log so much, she's not being exposed to humans anymore. She
Yeah.
just chooses to hide all the time, and so because of that, she's become more shy. And so I pulled the log out, cut it in half, put it back in such a way that she can't. Like I've made it so she can still get away and feel secure, but she still has to cruise around. Like she cruises around a lot more, and I think that because in doing so, she's more used to me, and it'll be easier for me to get her in and out, if that makes sense. I just think, yeah, a bit of exposure is important. Like I'm not one. I've never been one to like tame a snake or handle a snake, sit on my couch with a snake and watch TV or anything like that. But in this instance, she's potentially a really dangerous animal, and I need to manage it better. That's like I was talking about earlier, is trying to figure out ways to make this better. And I think that really nice big log was causing me potential problem in the future. And I think I've fixed it, maybe.
Yeah, well, especially like with something like a taipan, you don't want that thing being 7 foot long and going up its nut at everything. Like it wouldn't
No.
even be fun to keep that.
No.
Like,
No, nothing worse than you guys would experience a lot in your catching when you've got a snake by the tail and it's wrapped around something,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
you're pulling, and then as soon as that snake lets go, it's you need to adjust how hard you're pulling real quick. Yeah, otherwise you're going to give yourself a black eye with it. So I didn't want that to happen with my pet Coco, the coastal taipan. So
yeah.
I've
That's a cool
found
name, by the
ways
way.
around that. Yeah, yeah. There's a story behind that. I'll get into it one day, maybe.
I guess, yeah, moving on with like work, I guess, like what you do at work and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I applied to work at the aquarium in 2019, and prior to that, my reptile keeping experience, I started keeping reptiles in 2018. I got a breadlie and then a green python, and then I went and lived with a guy on Magnetic Island actually, who had he had 80 plus elapids, um, a stack of monitors, a stack of pythons, and all sorts of stuff. And I lived with him, and I got just snake experience on steroids. I didn't pay rent. I just cleaned enclosures, and I think we had 50 tiger snakes and black snakes, and they were all kept on newspaper and racks at the time. And you would clean all the racks, and when you're halfway through, you can hear the snakes in the first racks shitting.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was just constant cleaning enclosures, just constant. Which I really enjoyed it because, back then, super keen, hadn't really got much hands-on experience, and I was getting hands-on experience there, like massively. And yeah, I applied for a job at the aquarium, and I missed out because I didn't really have any professional experience. So I started doing a lot of volunteering at Billabong Sanctuary in Townsville. And then I got a message from Aaron Hopper, who was the manager at Cairns Aquarium back then. And he sent me a message and said, "What are you doing for work? Are you still keen on a zoo job?" And literally that weekend, I drove straight to Cairns, met Hopper, just showed my face a little bit. And then, yeah, managed to get a job as a junior reptile keeper. I started that in September of 2020, which really isn't that long ago. And yeah, one thing led to another, rose up the ranks a little bit, went from junior just to reptile keeper in about 18 months. And then I actually took some time away from reptile keeping, and I went and did some tour guiding up through Cape York and across to the NT and back. And yeah, and then Aaron Hopper resigned from the aquarium as the manager, and basically the position essentially got offered to me, and I went back and took on the role as the manager. So it's not a huge team, the reptile department there. It's me and Julius Kraus, who might be a familiar name to some listeners, maybe. It's, the Kraus family is, yeah, a very important family in the history of reptile keeping in Australia. And then we've got Lisa as well. Lisa does she helps out with reptiles wherever she can. She does a weekend there once a month. So yeah, as the manager there, it's pretty laid back. I've got a fantastic team. I think we've got, oh shit, I should know the exact number of exhibits. I think it's 17 or 18 reptile exhibits. I might not know the number, but I know what's in there, and I know that they're cleaned often, so well taken care of. But um, the collection at the aquarium is a bit different to how a lot of other collections are kept, and that's in the sense that we only keep animals that are native, mostly to the wet tropics region, which is around Cairns. I actually worked at the aquarium for like 2 years before I even understood the way that it was laid out, and it's a pretty cool journey. So when you walk into the aquarium, there's a little sign there that I clearly didn't read till like 2 years in. It says, "You are following the journey of a raindrop through like a mountain stream down into the savannah, then back into the rainforest again, and then out through the mangroves, through the Great Barrier Reef, and then into the Coral Sea." So that's the journey through the aquarium. So you're looking at exhibits from those regions as you walk through. Um,
Cool.
it is cool. Yeah, it is cool. And yeah, really the highlight of the reptile collection, which is something that's not native to the wet tropics, but that's okay, we'll take it, is the we've got a colony of emerald tree monitors there. And yeah, they're fantastic, just hyper intelligent. Um, they really are as cool as you might think they are. They are that cool. They're just super smart, mostly friendly, very sharp teeth, very strong bite. If you were wondering, if anyone's curious about that, emerald tree monitor bites, not pleasant, very not good.
I've been bitten by
Um,
plenty of monitors, and yeah, I can vouch for that.
yeah, it sucks. I remember early on in my time at the aquarium, I was videoing myself because that's what you do, I suppose, sometimes. Like this emerald tree monitor, it was crawling all over me, and I was like, "Oh, this is the coolest ever." And I was like cleaning poos or whatever. And then it ducked its head up under my shirt, and I was like, no. I was like, no, you don't, buddy. Get out of there. And then it's chewed down on that
Oh,
very soft little bit of skin right at the edge of your armpit there, and it didn't let go. It just locked, just lockjawed on. I had to pull it off, and I was left with like little like cuts on my that softest bit of skin there, and um, yeah, very very unpleasant. But the way that we keep them, they're in a really large exhibit. It's like 4 meters by 5 meters by 3 meters tall, and in there we've got 5 adult females and 5 major skinks as well, which are also underrated skinks. Man, they can climb almost as well as the emerald monitors. They might not be as fast, but if an emerald monitor can get there, so can a major skink, which is mind
that's
blowing
sick.
sometimes to see. Yeah, it's crazy. There's a photo from way back in the day. One of our excited male emerald tree monitors trying to mate a major skink. Just indiscriminate, just whatever he can get.
Just having a good old crash.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess, yeah, this is a snake catchers podcast after all. The olive sea snakes that we have there, are fantastic. They were bred at Reef HQ. They managed to produce them twice. So we've got a female from their first breeding, which I think was about 2018. And then we've got 2 boys that were from their second breeding in 2020. And unfortunately, Reef HQ is pretty much on hold at the moment. They've demolished most of that building and they're looking to rebuild. So all of the remaining olive sea snakes in the country, and I actually think potentially, I'd love to be corrected. I think we are the only facility that has olive sea snakes in the world at the moment. I actually don't know if there are any other facilities that keep sea snakes at all. Certainly olives. I think we're the only ones. We are actively trying to breed them. She gave birth last year to 1 live baby and about 5 or 6 like slug / mummified half developed things. Pretty unpleasant. But the live baby that she did give birth to, it came out from what I can gather and from what I've read, most aquatic snakes will be birthed and then pretty much shed that day or the next day. They just shed like immediately. And this guy just didn't shed, and it just didn't come out right. It didn't come out of the egg right. But interestingly, it was like 45 centimeters and like 150 grams. This thing is massive.
That's fairly sizable newborn.
Huge. And supposedly they can give birth to up to like 6 of them. So anyway, we've given her a year off because it's pretty tolling on a snake to have that sort of energy taken from them in birthing. So given her a year off, and we plan to pair them up this year. The gestation period is like 7 or 8 months. So we'll do all the matings this year in about August, and then hopefully come April, May next year, fingers crossed, this will be the second facility, I guess, to breed olive sea snakes, which would just be fantastic. But in terms of keeping, they're kind of like an underwater Woma python, like not super smart, but but they really love their food. They love their food once they've figured it. Yeah, once they've figured out what it is, like you can smack them in the face with a fish, and they're like sniffing around, like, is it? I'm not sure. Oh yeah, it is. And then they just smash it with all their might. And it's actually interesting watching because the way that they behave is not like, it's very different. Obviously, they've kind of subdue prey that swim really well, so that they'll bite their frozen defrosted fish. It doesn't swim at all, but they'll bite it, and then they'll cock their heads like 180, and then they'll jam it as hard and fast as they can into a rock, and they kind of flatten their body out and hold the fish in, like pin it against the rock whilst they work their mouth to the head and then swallow it. And from taking the fish to being completely finished, it takes about 15 seconds. Like it's fast. Yeah. And
really quick.
They kind of have to be. And we see them using their photo receptor, photosensitive organ in their tail quite often, where they jam their whole bodies into a rock crevice, but then just have their tail hanging out to look for shadows and stuff. So we see that quite regularly. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, that sounds nuts.
I think this is really cool. I just want to go to the breeding of the sea snakes quickly.
Yeah.
What sort of preparation are you giving the animals leading up to a breeding season? Like, are you keeping them separate and then introducing, or are you just keeping them together year round, or what conditioning are you doing for them?
Food. At least for the
Yeah.
female, what we
Yeah.
found is that yeah, she dropped a lot of condition, and that was just from birthing one baby and a handful of underdeveloped or totally infertile things. So this year, or for the last nearly 2 years, we've just been absolutely slamming her with food. They get fed every week.
Yeah.
She's probably a 2 kilo snake. She's quite large. She's probably
Yeah. Okay.
a meter 60, meter 70, and 2 kilos, maybe a bit more. So
Yeah.
she gets fed 2 to 3 whiting or other fish that we have. Occasionally, we'll supplement in with squid or prawns. Sometimes they can be a bit fussy with other food items, so it's mostly fish, a variety of different types of fish. We've got two boys that we keep separate in their own exhibit, and part of the reason why we keep them separate for most of the year is that the males develop these ridges all the way down their bodies, it's more like each scale will have like a series of bumps on it, kind of like braille. It's like these little bumps all over the
Yeah.
scales.
Right.
And what we sort of hypothesize is that when they're ready to, like when they're really hormonal and they're looking to mate, they'll develop all these bumps and ridges down their bodies. And that's what helps them to hold on to females underwater. And so these dudes are just horny as hell because they are bumpy like for like 6 or 7 months of the year. And I think they get a bit excited with each other at times as well. They'll sort of they really drape themselves over each other in an attempt to mate. So um, this year I'm considering just trialing pairing both males with the female. Maybe quite often some competition or combat is used in snakes to excite them for breeding. I don't think we'll have to, but I think it could be interesting just to see how it goes. Um, but yes, it's just a timing thing for us as well. So we know when she laid last year. We've got a pretty good idea on gestation period. So we'll just get close to that time, get her really full of food, and then chuck the boys in. The other thing too is that naturally within the aquarium, like the building itself, there's a lot of water. There's like 2.5 million liters of water in that building. The temperature fluctuates ever so slightly throughout the year. So it just naturally cools like a degree or a degree and a half when it comes towards our dry season. So I think that's probably enough to sort of kick them over as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was going to be my question. Like, if you can, lower the temperatures or do some sort of something there to cue them into, you know, get on with it or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, the sound
Yeah.
like the natural thing.
Yeah. Natural seasonal change is
Yeah.
doing its thing.
Something else we do, we obviously the tanks have to be cleaned, and when they get cleaned, we take the snakes out and we bathe them in fresh water, just so they can have a drink or whatnot. But we will also get like a 5 liter pump up spray bottle and just mist the top of the saltwater tanks with fresh water, and they'll actually come up and drink the fresh water off the surface that's just sitting on top of the,
Yeah.
it just sits on top of the salt water, so they'll just drink that too, which is really cool. But
So that's obviously
we
is that obviously what they do in the wild then? Obviously, like when it
yeah.
rains or something,
Yeah.
that's the only time they get a drink really is when it rains, I guess.
Yeah, so we're probably giving them more fresh water than they need, but they don't. We offer it to them; they don't have to drink it. But I
Yeah.
could only guess that in the wild, that's the only times they'd be getting fresh water is rain.
I guess you're getting some sort of fluid out of food items too, like in the wild, I guess. Some
In
for
the
like a
wild,
little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit would have to, but yeah, we also we defrost all their food in fresh water as well, just
Yeah. Yeah.
just because it sort of makes sense to do that, but. yeah, the sea snakes are a fun one. They're very unique. And when it comes to venomous keeping as well, I'm sure you guys would experience when when you've got a snake that you know quite well and it does something and you go, holy shit, you're capable of doing that. I remember now, a snake will come flying out or, turns around and launches back over itself or something. And you're like, holy shit, these sort of reminders are really good to sort of keep you in check. And um, I had one of those moments with one of the sea snakes, which is like, how could you, I feel like for the most part, if you have a close call with a sea snake, yeah, you were putting your head in the water or something, But
Huh.
in this case, we were feeding it. We feed off big, like 600 mil long hemostats, and the snake, like I was saying before, they sniff around at the food and they carry on a bit. And then when they realize that it is a prey item, they get really excited and they literally like wind up and then they bite full force and swish their tail. Well, she didn't bite the fish; she bit the tongs, and then when she swished her tail, she came shooting straight up the tongs. And that was butt puckering. She let go about halfway up, but that's one of those things where you would never predict it. So, like, I wouldn't have guessed that would happen without having it happen to me.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
something else you got to consider, and more like actively try to get the fish into the snake's mouth now instead of just holding it still.
What are they then? What are their feelings like?
Not very long. Um,
Yeah.
there's all those myths and rumors about like, oh, a sea snake. There was one I heard. It's like, oh, a sea snake, their fangs are so small they can only puncture the webs of your fingers. I'm like, what a fucking crock of shit. Like, there's no like that's just absurd. I'm not taking any chances. I mean, I imagine their fangs are probably like 3 or 4 mil long, but that's
Yeah.
plenty long
Long
enough
enough.
to get some pretty gnarly. Yeah. And the other thing I consider a lot, sorry, fellas, I know I'm rambling, but uh, the other
It's
thing
fun.
I
It's
consider
what
a
it's
bit,
what these things are about.
I think so. Something else I consider too often is we've got anti venom for brown snakes and taipans and tiger snakes and death adders and whatever else. And we've got facilities with all of these snakes where they milk them and then they refine it to make really effective anti-venom. I don't think that the efficacy of sea snake anti-venom is anywhere near the efficacy of coastal taipan or brown snake anti-venom. So I am not going to take like I'm sort of extra precautious knowing that um yeah, I mean, it just makes sense really because people are getting bitten by terrestrial snakes and people aren't. So actually, I'm just hypothesizing here again. I'd be interested to know, but I can only imagine that the same amount of research probably hasn't gone into sea snake antivenom as it has to terrestrial snakes antivenom that might get actually utilized more.
Yeah. Wouldn't have thought so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but you wouldn't have thought so. Yeah, I guess it's not as a big, like you said, not as big a thing as terrestrial snakes. Yeah, it'd be interesting how they. Do you know how they go about that, or where they make it? Do they
I,
make it in
I
Australia?
don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I know
I've
that
actually literally
Cairns-based
never looked
hospital
into that.
stocks it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Do
I know they've
you
got
have to
some.
keep it on site at work as well?
No, nah.
No.
The hospital is about 300 meters away. So
No, the
That's
yeah,
very easy.
it's convenient. Yeah. I mean, heaven forbid, but
yeah, no,
yeah.
touch wood, that doesn't happen.
'Cause they're venom too. That's highly neurotoxic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I just sort of similar to the inland taipan. Fish are pretty hard to catch, as are mice in Central Australia. So they really need their venom to work.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, neurotoxic and yeah, just it'd just be a horrible experience. I think.
yeah, that's it. Um, I guess to sort of round out a little bit, just into herping a little bit, I guess. Is there any standouts? There's probably been a few, but is there anything that stands out to you in your herping time that is probably one of your best stories?
Um, that's a good
Either
question.
location or species, one of the two that stands out.
Um, yeah, geez, it's a damn shame I don't go herping nearly as much as I should. And the last time I went on a designated herp trip was too long ago. Um, had a really good time in Borneo herping there. That was about 2018, and interestingly, the animal highlight in Borneo wasn't a reptile. We on like our last night of herping, we found a pangolin, which was just
That's pretty cool. That's very
yeah,
cool.
it was crazy. It was just bizarre. Weird creature. But we did find like some spitting cobras and a bunch of like the Bornean keeled vipers and a bunch of other stuff. And um, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Herping wise, it's a bit tricky. Actually, yeah, no, I got a good herp story. I the 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 tour guiding that I was doing up through Cape York. I think I did 10 or 11 trips up and down the Cape, driving a 21-seater bus with mostly sort of oldies in it, and had a particularly rough season. A bunch of things didn't really go my way, but I was driving the truck through Lockerbie Scrub, which is at the very tip of Cape York, and this pretty big black monitor lizard walked in front of like just walked across the front of the bus in this rainforest section, and I knew immediately. I was like, "There's no lace monitors here. It's too big to be any of the Odatria species." I'm like, "That's a blue-tailed monitor. There's nothing else it can be." And I jumped on the microphone and I told the crew that, and by the way, they couldn't give a shit, but 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 I was excited, and so I was like, look, there's a pretty good chance that one of the rarest lizards, if not one of the rarest reptiles in Australia, just walked in front of the bus. So I'm just going to pull up here and see if I can have a look. And as I got out, it was sort of still on the road, and I ran over to it, and it just pissed off up a tree. And I managed to snap a quick picture, like this very blurry black and blue picture of it running up a tree. And I told everyone, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And I just like, I was like, I might just have another look. And I went full like Ocker tour guide spec, and I climbed out the window and onto the roof of the truck. And I looked into the tree, and there was this blue-tailed monitor just clinging onto a tree, just looking back at me. And
So good.
it, yeah, I shed a tear just a little bit, and then I got back into the bus, and I told everyone, I was like, "Look, it's amazing. If anyone's interested, I'll pull the bus over, and we can actually try and see if we can get a bit of a look at it." And a couple of people came out because people weren't super fast, but they could sort of tell that I was really excited. And then a couple of people came out, and this thing just sat in a tree. It was like, at first it was like, oh, you can just sort of see it up there, rah, rah, rah. And then this thing just walked down from the tree and then sat pretty much at head height in this tree, perfect vision, and just sat there and looked at us. And everyone got out and saw it. I was just in a fit, just losing my shit. We ended up like other people were pulling over and looking at this thing, and it was just literally I could have reached out and touched it, and it was just not fast. It just went up and down this tree. Everyone got good photos of it, and then I think I spent the next like 7 or 8 days of the trip telling everyone, "You don't know what you saw. Those pictures are insane. No one. This doesn't happen. Like this is just ridiculous. Like yeah, it is crazy." And again, like they weren't fussed, but they could just tell I was excited. Yeah, that's my favorite herping story for sure. It wasn't even herping; it was incidental, but it was unreal.
That's I think it's
Yeah.
some
It's sick.
what a species to get as well. Um, but going back to the tourist side of things, it's like when people go walk around Kakadu, take a photo of a snake in a tree and post it to a group and say, "Oh, that's Nicholas," and it's an old Pearly. Like,
Yep,
yeah,
yep,
it's exactly the
yep.
same. Like, you're
It's the
freaking out
tourists.
over this
Yeah,
lizard, and people just couldn't. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
lizard,
That
right?
can't quite
But
grasp it.
to,
Yeah, whatever,
to,
man.
to us, it's like the best thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah, totally. An Olympelli would be a good one. I think seeing a wild Olympelli would just be ridiculous.
I think that's the pinnacle for most Aussie herpers. I'd say the
Yeah,
on Pearly. One day, one day.
one day. Yeah.
Um, Before we sort of wrap up, the thing we touched a bit on it at the start, but under the heat lamp, you are the host of that podcast. You started just before we did, I think. You've got a few more episodes out. But yeah, do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown on what that is and what your sort of goal with that is?
Um, yeah, I guess sort of, yeah, like I was saying before, the goal was just to have conversations with reptile people, but it's kind of evolved a little bit into more of like a I'm getting pretty big on trying to encourage people to do the right thing by animals, I guess. Um, a lot of it's in the captive side of things, and like I um I'm trying to pick guests that I think are really doing the right thing and are setting standards for the way that we keep animals. Um, yeah, and as well as yeah, I do want it to just be entertaining as well. There are some sorts of podcasts. I've ventured out into a couple of other different realms. Some photography, some herping, some yeah, like crocs and all sorts of stuff. But I think at the crux of it, it was just me wanting to talk to people about something that I really enjoyed, and if incidentally other people can enjoy it as well, then yeah, that's fantastic.
I definitely think people are enjoying it. Um, I definitely listen to it. And yeah, I've taken a lot out of it from particular guests
Yeah,
you have.
thanks.
So yeah, I really enjoy it.
I think that's sort of
Yeah,
the big thing with podcast is like, the old saying that every second person starts a podcast these days, but like most of them don't make it because a lot of people are doing it for the wrong reason, sort of thing. Just wanting to be like the next Joe Rogan or something like that. But you sort of really got to start, well, just talking about something you enjoy or passionate about, and that really, you know, that's the sort of telling factor with it all. You're not really necessarily starting it to get heaps of exposure and that sort of stuff. You just,
oh
like we
yeah,
both are, it's just to talk to people.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
and if it sort of takes off in a certain way, it does sort of thing, but it's got to start in the right, um, in the right mindset of it where you're just sort of doing it for the right reasons kind of thing.
yeah, definitely. And I think like one thing that I've sort of naturally just not done. I don't really look at like any of the analytics or anything like that. Like I'm not super fussed on the views or anything. I'm just doing things that I think would be a good thing for people to hear or people to listen to.
Yeah.
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 And it's also been like a bit of a personal challenge thing too, because I'm not the most organized person. So having to have an episode ready to go every Wednesday has been like really good for me just to try to sort my shit out a bit more, organize more people and actually to get stuff happening. And I'm certainly not a very creative person either. So it's been a bit of fun trying to come up with, logos and thumbnails and that sort of thing. And um, yeah, if I could just get better at scheduling people but half the time I feel bad. Like it's like, oh, hey man, do you want to come on my podcast? And I feel like I'm hassling people all the time. And like you said, like I don't want to be another Joe Blow with a podcast, but I kind of am. I've done it, so I'm already
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. So we now as well.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not even necessarily the conversation, it's everything else you got to do to get it up. Like, I literally, I only did like our first thumbnail on YouTube last week. Like, I
Yeah,
couldn't be bothered, couldn't be bothered doing it. We just been using just whatever comes up. They're not really too
yeah,
fast, but, and then Spotify is what it is. But like, sort of as you go, like you sort of put a bit more effort. And the other thing we've sort of been lacking on doing, mainly on my part, is doing like posting shorts to social media and that sort of stuff. That's probably the thing we sort of lack with on time to sort of, get them out there a bit more, which we're going to try and get on
Trying to get on to
just to try and expose it a little bit more. But yeah, having the actual conversations, the easy part.
totally. Yeah, I find the shorts is a bit challenging. I find because I'm always just maybe a bit hypercritical. I'm like, oh, is this a good short? Like, I'm not. I don't know. Is this the right thing to put out there? And then I'm like, I worry about like what the guest is going to think. And then like I'll make the thumbnail with the guest's face, and I'm like, oh, are they going to be okay with how that looks and whatnot? But at the end of the day, the people have agreed to come on, so you kind of get a bit of creative liberty. But I've also found that, like you just said, I think, Brett, like it just comes with time. Like, work on a little bit by bit, and the first 10 or 12 thumbnails and pictures that I did were a pain in the ass. I'm on Canva trying to fucking figure out, like, change the font or change the font color. It was a nightmare. But now I can bust those things out, pretty rapidly. Granted, they're very basic, but um, yeah, it just comes with it. And I'm trying to also, like, I have used AI to come up with the logos, because if I was paying people for everything on this podcast, I'd start coming out of pocket really quick. Like, the software costs enough already, but I'm trying to steer clear from using AI pretty much anywhere else. I let Spotify generate chapters for me, but I'll write all my own captions and all my own descriptions and titles and all that stuff as well too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you got to keep it as much of you as you can, I suppose, without AI taking over. Um, it's good as well, just having another um, podcast in the sort of Australian reptile space, because they're sort of few and far between.
Yeah,
There was a
definitely.
one a while ago, the Australian Horticulture podcast that those boys were doing. Um, and I really enjoyed that, and then they stopped doing it. So it's definitely good to have another one, because again, you hear of all these people, or you might send these people a message, talking about animals and stuff like that. But it's good to hear stories from them and hear their sort of side of things from the hobby as well.
Agree. Yeah, I commend Jason and Luke for what they did with the Australian Herpetoculture podcast. Those guys did a fantastic job. So yeah, I'm sort of happy to, I guess, pick up where those guys left off.
Yeah, no, it's definitely needed again, because there's not
Agree.
many Australian reptile podcasts anyway. Plenty of American ones, but yeah, we need some more Aussie ones out there.
Yeah, agree. And there's plenty of Aussie reptile people out there. There's plenty of people to talk to, so it's
Yeah,
good.
that's it. That's it.
Do you, I guess, yeah, just before we sort of wrap it up, you don't have a sort of struggle? Do you have a decent list of people, I guess, is like of, you don't struggle to think of people sort of thing at this stage anyway to try and get up?
No, at this stage, it's all pretty good. I think potentially it might get tricky, and if that does sort of happen, then I'll just push the podcast back to every fortnight if I have to, or as time progresses, people that you've already interviewed might have other things pop up that they want to talk about, and that's one really good thing about herp herpetoculture, snake catching, herping, all that stuff. It's constantly changing. People are constantly having new experiences, so there's kind of always something to talk about. And there's almost always someone willing to talk. I've had quite a few sort of the older generation that aren't really interested in coming on, but
Um,
um, sort of just a generational thing, I think, which is totally fine.
yeah, I think we've had a couple of those from people we've asked, of sort of the older generation that have said no. But
I guess I think, yeah, the other thing, like almost, it's important, like, just not to think about that too much at the start too, and just have a crack at it, and things happen too. Like, even like in
Totally.
your instance, like the green tree python chat you do, like you sort of, you can almost have some, like, subject sort of episodes that you can sort of come back to periodically, and that sort of thing. So that fills in gaps as well, like not necessarily having um different. Did that cut out? No.
nah,
Yeah, yeah, having
It
like
just it
different.
just cut out a bit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, not necessarily having different people on every single week, but like you can have like repeated people come back talking about like a similar subject as like you were saying, sort of thing, and have like subject episodes as well. So it sort of creates its own thing as well. So yeah,
We're breaking up a bit. Must be raining.
yeah, Oh,
No, that's
Nah.
all right.
No.
We'll leave it there before it cuts out completely. Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
yeah, that's great. And for being our first online
No, of
guest, thank
course.
you very much.
Got
No,
to
it's a
start
pleasure,
somewhere with the
fellas.
online guests. But yeah, we'll leave the description for Joe's podcast as well under the heat lamp in the description of this on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you again for coming on. Hope everyone enjoyed. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, we will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.